Excellent. All right, Scotty. Bye-bye. Hi, Lee.
Alan, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I've been worried all day because I haven't had a camera for the last 2 days. And so I was fiddling around with it, and I guess I got it to work, so I have video now.
Good for you. I had to buy a new one.
Yeah, I do. How do you like it? Did you got a what kind did you get?
It's a Logi. It was the cheapest one I could find at Martha's Nantucket Computer Solutions.
Ah,
Hey, Ken.
Good afternoon. Where am I on the agenda?
you're right after the minutes, I believe. Let me just look here. Yeah. Right. So you're at the beginning of the meeting.
And I didn't see anything that I thought I should stay for, or unless you have further thoughts.
No, nothing new on Pulpus.
Vicky and I are talking. We don't have. She doesn't see any major things, but like it was on the agenda for this week, and it's got moved out to next week or the week after because Libby keeps throwing stuff on my chair. It says this needs to get done yesterday. So
Yeah. No, I understand how it all works.
the thing that I'm really good, that I'm comfortable about is that I'm okay with respect to the appraisals. We're not going to have any trouble with respect to that. And my discussions with Rick suggest that we're not going to have any discussion with the language. But I just need Vicky to bless it because I can't bring it forward to you until town council has taken a look at it. So I don't see any major thing, but it's just frustrating for you and for me. So
Yeah, I know. Our concern is that we need to lay out additional lots because we've got, I think there are just 19 left.
right.
And we can't.
There's no issue with respect to the location and the plans and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's encouraging in the sense that the layout that we talked about in terms of where the new stuff is going to be, they're very comfortable with that. So.
Okay, great. That what we have to do is get a surveyor in there to,
Understood.
Do all that sort of stuff. And then once we get those lots laid out, then we'll take it from there. But all right. All right. Well, so Ken, that's it. As far as the cemetery commission, I don't believe there's anything else on the agenda that would apply. No, layout of lots. You've seen the monument restoration report?
Yep.
Ken,
Encouraging. So,
Ken, this is Lee. I understand that you have to leave, but maybe I can, when we're on the record, we're not recording at the moment.
Yep.
When we're on the record, we'll acknowledge that you're here, and Alan will call on you just after the minutes and then depart.
And I'll give you update.
That way it's recorded.
Yep, perfect.
Who's on for the town committee?
The town committee?
Yeah, there's a window.
Oh, no, wait, that's Barbara.
No, she's just come on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, there was a chat that said it was Phyllis.
Okay, we have everybody present except for Scotty.
Scott says he might be able to make it.
Yeah, I just heard he just called me. He's on Interstate 95 making his way back to the island. So
There's no way he's going to make it.
no
Okay,
way.
I'm going to turn on the recording. Actually, it is.
There we go. Yeah, it's on.
The recording is on. We have been recording. I'm sorry, folks.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Hello, Lee.
I see.
Can you hear me? This is Phyllis.
Hi, Frank. Who's the town committee?
This is Phyllis. I logged in to let everyone in, but I think Lee was logged in already.
Oh, Phyllis, hi.
Yes.
I
Hi,
didn't.
how are you?
Fine, thank you. Did you have a nice vacation?
I did. Thank you.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Phyllis, are you going to stay on? We would like for you to stay on.
I can stay on. We're kind of short-handed because one person quit. So I can stay on, but I might be back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Phyllis. That's great. So, okay, it's 3 o'clock. I call the meeting of the Nantucket Cemetery Commission to order for February 9th, 2022. And first item, public or commissioners' comments. Any comments from the commissioners? Seeing none. Minutes. We had minutes from our last meeting of January 12th. Any errors, omissions, any comments on the minutes? Other than they were well done. I would entertain a motion for approval of those minutes then.
So move.
Okay, Barbara and Fran, just second. Great.
Okay,
roll
roll call, Alan, and that will represent our roll call for attendance as well.
Okay, great. Roll call on the whatever we just, Fran?
Here.
Yes, Barbara?
I and here.
Okay. The chair is here and votes aye, and Lee.
Yes, I and also here.
Okay, great. Scotty will not be able to join us. He's on Interstate 95 on his way heading back from a business thing, so he won't be here. I did speak with him, and we'll get to that item in just a minute or two. Okay, lot sales. Since the last meeting, lot G18 was sold to Samantha Sandler.
Sanders. On the agenda, it says Sanders.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should say Sandler, Sandler. Uh-oh. Let me switch over. Oh, shoot. Oh, you're right. Sorry about that. That's my error. It's Samantha Sandler, Sandler, lot G18. And she has paid for that lot, and I
It
don't.
needs an approval.
You think so? Okay. All right. Let's. I would entertain a motion for approval.
That's Lee.
Okay, Lee, and second.
I'll
Barbara?
second.
Barbara, great. And a roll call. Fran,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
and Lee,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. The Tarloff Marker, I did notify Dr. Tarloff after our last letter about the situation at Quaker Cemetery. I told him that I took responsibility for the miscommunication, let's put it that way, where we had the approval of the lot. So I told him that we would approve either replacing that stone, the existing stone, with a slightly larger one to include both names, or to add the names and the dates on the existing stone. And he's been in touch with Lauren at Patterson, what do they call it? At Neil Patterson, the stone engraver. And so they're working out what they're going to do as far as the stone. So, last thing is the Amy Brock funeral. I was there for the digging the hole. This was in in New North Cemetery. And everything went well with the digging of the hole. The town was paid $500. And this was something that was new to me. As you know, Jeff Morash from Prospect Hill did the burial. They have the equipment to lower the casket down into the hole in the ground and so on. But because we dug the hole, the town of Nantucket received $500 for that portion of it, for digging the hole. And the remainder of it went to Prospect Hill, and I forget whatever else was involved. So anyway, everything went well. I went back the day after, made sure that everything was covered up, and they're going to plant some seed and that'll grow in. So any questions on that? Everything went very smooth.
I intended to go to the funeral, but then I had a conflict. But my nieces who live across the street said that after the graveside service and people left, the people filling in the hole were having a really hard time because it was so incredibly cold that moving the dirt back into the hole took a great deal of effort, and she was impressed that they persevered.
They did indeed. I stayed for a while after the funeral, but I left before the whole filler inners came back. So anyway, it went well. Okay, Pulpa Cemetery. Ken Bogrand is here with us, and
I just have a brief report, Alan. Unfortunately, as we have for the last couple of months, it is still sitting with Vicki Marsh. We're moving it up onto her agenda. There aren't any major issues that Vicki and I see, but she has to go through the actual process. I've brought Rick Bodette, the lawyer for the Hickses, up to speed with respect to it, and they're understanding the timing. I don't see any major issues, but I keep pressing her, and so we will get to it sooner rather than later. But it is on my agenda. It's on the top of my file, but it isn't necessarily in the same place on Vicki's file.
Right. Okay. So at least there's the feeling of progress here.
There is progress, and we're all set with respect to the appraisal. That's not going to create an issue, and also with the agreement that we need to get the surveyor in there in terms of being able to do the other line. So that's all going to be able to be lined up, and I don't see any issues with that happening, and I'll keep you posted.
Great. Good. Okay. Any other questions for Ken? If not, thank you very much, Ken. Appreciate it.
And I apologize for popping in and out, but it's been crazy around here. So
I don't know. It's no problem at all, Ken. We're glad to have you here. So,
right. Thanks much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ken.
Right, thanks, Lee.
With regard to Pulpus Cemetery, the next item here, the things that once we get the dimensions and the wherever the property is and that sort of thing, the first thing we need to do is to lay out the new lots. I spoke with Mark at the water company, and they're pretty short-handed at the moment, in that they have gazillions of new water connections that they're doing. So, when the time comes, once we get this lot done, or once we get the transfer finalized, what we'll do is go in and actually what I'd like to do is to go in there with the commissioners and take a look at the new land that we'll be acquiring and take a look at the whole cemetery and see what areas we could put where we could establish new lots. There's some wonderful lots at the top of the hill there. There's some on the backside going down where it's relatively level. And then whatever the situation is on this new piece of property we'll be acquiring for the cemetery. So anyway, the steps will be once it's finalized, the transfer is finalized, we'll go in there with a surveyor and figure out where we want to put the lots. We'll put maybe some stakes in the ground and so on, and then we'll get we'll either hire surveyors to go in and lay out the lots, or if the water company is available or some other part of the DPW is available, then we'll do it that way. And of course, the toe markers I already mentioned, or last month I mentioned the toe markers and the corner markers we'll need to get. I think once that is all in place, we'll go in, set the corner markers, set the toe markers for the lots, and then we'll update the map that we have of the cemetery as to who's where. So that's the process. Once we, as I say, once we get the property cleared. So progress, maybe. At least we have a plan for what we're doing there, and so we'll keep that ball moving, so to speak. Any questions on any of that on Pulpus? Good. Okay. The lot sales, the purchase of lot sales and the procedures and so on. We discussed this briefly at the last meeting, and what Phyllis and I did, we unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the flow chart, or I've got it somewhere in my computer, but I don't know where it is, put it that way. So we have added a step in the flow chart as far as the approval. Once we have the check for the lot, Phyllis fills out the form and sends it, and the approval step comes at our meeting once that's all completed. So as I say, we've added that, we moved the step as far as the approval to where we are. It used to be we had to approve them. I forgot what the situation was, but anyway, so anyway, that the whole process now should be pretty clear, in that when we sell the lot, you know, and approve it and all that sort of thing, all the paperwork is taken care of, and so far so good. That's the last two sales that we've had have been smooth. Let's put it that way, and they get recognized immediately. Phyllis, are you there?
She should be, but Phyllis, you're muted.
Okay, well, that's all right. I was just going to see if she had the flow chart on her schedule, but okay.
An order, press.
Hello, did you need me?
Oh, hi, Phyllis, are you there?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hi, Phyllis.
Hi.
Do you have that flow chart that we did, I think it was a month and a half ago? We made the change, the approval of the lot sale.
The one with the lots that are sold?
No, the procedure chart, we had a sort of a flow chart that,
Oh, yeah, yes. Hold 1 second, I do. Just go ahead with the meeting. I have to find it.
okay, it's, yeah,
I found
it's,
it.
okay. By the way, I got a copy of the, this is the cemetery report. All 588 pages of it.
Okay, everybody, it's up on the screen.
Yeah,
Payment submitted, approved by committee.
Is that the one where?
yeah, that's the one. Thank you, Phyllis.
Yeah, I saw invoices for Ray, but I didn't see the stuff yet.
Right.
He got
Oh.
some stuff.
Okay, commissioners, do you see what we did
Yep.
as for the chart?
Yep,
Okay. Approved by the commission, payment submitted. We log it into the master sheet and process the certificate and file all the copies and so on. So that's the
It's so much better.
it is. Good. Okay, and what it does, it smooths out, you know, before when we were doing it, we didn't necessarily, you know, sometimes we had the payment, sometimes we didn't. We would approve them and back and forth. So this cleans up the that whole process a little bit. So it makes it more straightforward. And the key thing is that as soon as that certificate goes out, we have a record. We have it in our computer files. We have it in the master sheet that Phyllis put together for us. So great. All right, Phyllis, thank you for for putting that up. And Phyllis, I know you go home fairly soon. So I think Lee, you can handle the closing of the meeting, can you?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So Phyllis, whenever you need to leave, you can feel free to go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you. And glad to have you back from vacation. Monument restoration report. Well, I got an email from Erica, I think it was, with the report on it. And it was to a PDF. And my computer, PDFs are much larger files than Word files, I've discovered, apparently. So I was having a problem downloading it. We finally, anyway, that worked out. So you all got a copy of on our computer form. I went through the whole report. As I say, I do have a hard copy here that I got, the DPW printed it out for me. And of course, the last 300 pages are individual cemeteries with the spots and what they did and et cetera. So that, you know, there's a lot of information in there. I thought that the overall summary, the approach and so on was very informative. I learned a lot about cemetery monuments, or gravestones as they're referred to. And I did speak with Scotty just before the meeting as he was driving back to the island. And he had his recommendation. I'm sorry, let me back step one step. The people who did the survey said that there are two forms of two ways we can go about this. We can either go for conservation or for restoration. And the difference is that conservation is taking care of whatever needs to be taken care of the stone without trying to recreate the original stone, basically, which is what the restoration is. And Scotty's recommendation, and I also had talked with Ellen, who was one of the two principals who were doing the survey. And I discussed this briefly with her. Her recommendation was for these older cemeteries to do the conservation work, because she said sometimes if you're trying to resurrect a stone or something, you can do more damage than good. And there's something about in the old cemeteries, people sort of expect that there are going to be certain things so I think it's the difference between, I won't call it perfection because restoration is not, well, anyway. So that's one of the first things we have to decide is which path to take.
Does it have to be either or is it possible to designate some things for some repair? Because in the description of conservation, they were talking about burying pieces of broken stone.
Mhm.
And, there are two stones that went over just last winter in Old North Cemetery, and there were pieces of broken stone lying around. My feeling is that it's really bad to have those pieces of broken stone just lying on the ground. But I'm not sure I really feel great about burying them either. There are some grave markers that I would like to see fixed if possible. Another one is, there's one marker in the historic colored cemetery. It's the one that's piled and
Mhm.
it's really up. I
Right.
would really like to see that one straightened out.
Mhm.
So do we really have to commit to one or the other, or can we commit to mostly conservation plus some repairs?
I think we can certainly do both. I mean, it really depends. You'll notice on each of the stones, I think there were 250 some stones that they wrote up individually on the pieces of paper at the end of the report. And they assigned a condition, a 1, 2, or 3 condition to each of the stones. And I think the restoration part of it deals with things like straightening up the stones that are tilted and so on, that sort of thing. I think that's part of the restoration. But certainly if there is a stone, or if there is I'm trying to think, there is, I guess it would be a gravestone that somehow either was buried, because some of them they did scrape. They had a metal probe that they were poking in the ground. If there was a stone that was broken, they had a metal probe that they would go in the ground. And if they hit something, they would dig down. And indeed, there were some pieces of stone. And some of those are illustrated in the photographs that they.
There were 2 that they found, they said, in Newtown Cemetery.
Yeah.
Which was sort of exciting.
Yes, exactly. I remember a Newtown cemetery where we had to find baby Lindsay. Yeah, I think that was it. This was several years ago, or a number of years ago, that back in the 70s, there was a child who was stillborn, and Ricky tucked her into Newtown, and the parents, I think this was like 15 or 20 years later, wanted to put a marker, gravestone on the site. And we had a devil of a time finding it, but Scotty and I were out there, and we finally located the site, the area. And then as we were digging around, we found a little aluminum strip that said Lindsay on it. So that was pretty amazing. So we did locate, and that stone has been in place. So anyway, Fran, that's sort of in answer to your question. Yes, I think if there was a particular situation where a stone, let's say they dug down, that stone would probably be safer in the town clerk's office rather than buried in the ground. You know,
Alan, this is Lee, or the NHA.
or the NHA, correct? Yeah,
Well,
either.
we already have a history of some loose stones. When Catherine was town clerk, loose stones that we could not locate where they'd come from. She took them into safekeeping at the town clerk's office. So there is something of a history of grave markers going there. The significant one about the NHA is the Captain John Gardner slate marker that they took in the 1880s and replaced with what they called a replica, but it's not a replica. It's a 1880s one that has the same inscription on it.
Right.
But I'm happy to report that currently the NHA is showing the original one
Oh,
at the
really?
Whaling Museum. You can go and see it.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah. So that was a good example of it being taken in for safekeeping and actually brought back before the public currently. I'd like to say something. I think that the documentation and evaluation stone by stone is just a tremendous piece of progress for us, and I'm really glad we've done it. That said, and this is not the only case of off-island consultants, but off-island consultants write up these beautiful, expensive presentations, but they don't get anybody local to proofread them. So the one recently for coastal resiliency was marred by the misspelling of Brant Point throughout the whole thing. Earlier, when Cape Wind was trying to get people on their side for Cape Wind, they kept announcing that you wouldn't be able to see the turbines from Children's Beach, which was ridiculous. Or more recently about our island home, they keep talking about the ocean view. There's no ocean view.
yeah.
And the fact that off-island consultants go in and do these reports and don't have anybody local looking at them before they do up the final beautiful presentation has a way of putting local people off. So if Barbara or I or either of you had read a draft of this, there are things we could have mentioned. For instance, I'm very pleased that they used my cemetery book and referred to it frequently.
Yep.
But since that book was put out at the request of the Carter family, we changed historic colored cemetery to the historic spelling of colored. And it's not there, and that would bother the Stewarts.
Yeah.
It's not true that there are no grave markers in the Pulpus or Founders Burial Ground. There are a couple of historic markers in Pulpus Cemetery, but mainly modern ones. And there is the 1880s grave marker for Captain John Gardner in Founders. They could say just as well that they didn't survey these cemeteries because there are no or almost no historic grave markers in them, and they would have been nearly right. They wrote Crooked Road for Crooked Record. They repeatedly wrote New Lane Road for New Lane.
Hmm.
Barbara and I both noticed that where they say the burials in Newtown Cemetery are oriented east to west, that's not so. With respect to the historic colored cemetery, it just seems gratuitous to say it is not known why this land was chosen for burials, because it's obvious it was used for burials because it adjoined the neighborhood where people lived. I hope there are not two drive-through openings in the fence along the historic colored cemetery's northern border. I don't want anybody driving through. They refer to Thankful Micah as Thankful Micah. When talking about men in the historic colored cemetery, they mentioned two people who served in the Union Army, but they completely ignored the more people who are buried there who served in the Union Navy. They didn't say anything about Eunice Ross. And then there were a couple of times where they referenced to isolated instances of vandalism, which made me wonder, tell me about those. Where are they? And when, you know, what's the evidence? I really would like to know about instances of vandalism. And then there's an inevitable inconsistency of spelling my name. So
Yeah, I think, I mean, I enjoyed reading the report. I found it, like Fran, really impressive, but the errors need to be fixed before they just simply need to be fixed, because Fran and I both know that sometimes when mistakes are made, they carry on in the records. And so I think that if we want to divide it up, I don't know how we want to address the errors, but I do think they should be addressed.
well, my feeling is they've already done this very fancy presentation. I think it's already become part of the town of Nantucket records.
I wouldn't go that far. I totally agree with everything that you have just said. The first thing when I saw the report, the first thing I noticed was the misspelling of the historic colored cemetery. And that was early on, and I thought, oh my God, you know, what else is there? And I did notice some of the other things that you've mentioned as well. In terms of the reference to the cemeteries, these being the ones with monuments in them, when they were contracted, we gave them the names of the 5 cemeteries that had stones that were in need of repair. Obviously, there are stones at Pulpa Cemetery. There are the stones at his founder's burial ground, and and so on. My thought when I was reading through the report is that they were focused on these 5 cemeteries, and it would have been great if they if we could have proofread them before the report came in. I made a note. Sorry, yes, Lee?
Ellen, I was going to ask simply, can we ask the town to ask the consultants if they would accept our amendments?
Yes, we can. My plan was one of the things that was not in the report was any sort of an estimate of how much this work was going to cost. And when I spoke with Ellen, one of the coordinators of this, I asked her, this was the last day that they were here, I said, will you be attaching an estimate as to how much this work is going to cost? And they said, well, it depends on which way you go and so on. Well, I said, how about just sort of a ballpark estimate to give us a rough idea, in terms of how we're going to do it. And she said that she would include that, and I noticed that it wasn't in the report. So after I read the report, my plan is to call her, and I wanted two things. First, can she correct the errors such as the historic colored cemetery and some of the other errors that are in the document? And second, if she could provide some sort of an estimate as to how much this work costs. So,
Alan, hi. For the estimate, I think we're all in favor of the conservation viewpoint, and that may be important for her to work up an estimate, to make an estimate, knowing that we're interested in conservation, not restoration.
mhm,
Not quite. We're interested in on conservation and
Right.
potentially some instances of restoration.
Yes, we got that.
yeah. And I think that's where the rating scale, the 1 to 3 scale, as far as the condition, will play into it. Now, going forward, I would assume we would want to do it cemetery by cemetery. I mean, when I was thinking about, well, how would we,
Scotty isn't with us, but he had some idea about that, I think.
He did.
He did.
I remember a long time ago, when we're talking about ratings, he said, we could, there's several ways to go on this. You
Mhm.
could take the most seriously damaged
Right.
first, or whatever, those most in need of restoration and or conservation.
right.
So I feel like that may become a question for the team that is hired to do it.
Yes,
Which
exactly.
would be recommended because it may be cheaper or more economic, expeditious to do cemetery by cemetery, but we don't want to run out of money for whatever is the bottom of the list. So
Exactly.
I think we might need some more input on that. But I do think, Alan, we need to correct what we have. I strongly believe that.
Mhm.
I also sort of regret that Barbara and I weren't there when they went. I just read the report again before our meeting, and Erica Mooney and somebody else were there, and it said that they recorded an interview with them, but Barbara and I should have been there.
Yeah, I mentioned that to I forget who, either it was either Erica or Ellen, and I think it was Ellen had pointed out to Erica that there are open meeting laws, that if we had a quorum of commissioners present with them while they were doing it, that we had to post the meeting. And I think it was Ellen's concern that she didn't want to get bogged down in having a quorum and that sort of thing there.
One of us.
Yeah, I know that if I had been more alert to when this was going on, we could have set it up, because they were here for like 3 days. I met with them on 2 of those days, but I was only there for like 20 minutes, half an hour or so, and chatting with them because I didn't want to slow them down from the work that they were doing. And but yeah, it would have been nice. But
And we could have, one of us could have been there, not as a cemetery commissioner, but as a historian. Well, I think that, I don't know, especially if it was just one of us, Alan.
well, no, it as long as it wasn't a quorum. So anytime two commissioners could have been there, and it wouldn't. And I can't imagine that who would have turned us in for saying, "Oh, wait a minute, you had an illegal meeting," but I don't know.
So how, I guess you have to get permission from them first, but I think that, we should, I
Well,
know Grant's already gone through a lot of it. I went through it rather hastily. I would like to go through it, but only if it's going to bear fruit.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Only if it's going to be, taken into consideration.
You mean as far as revising the report? Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, good question. What I'll do is I plan to speak with Ellen. Was the principal one that I spoke with. And my assumption was, because the document was originally in a PDF, there's no way I could go in and make the changes. That was one of the first things that I wondered about. If I could go in and correct some of the typos. I'm assuming that that was a typo and so on. And of course, it's a PDF. You can't do that unless you have I don't know. Anyway, I didn't have the capability to do that. So I'm assuming that as the authors of the report, they can simply go in and make those whatever corrections we point out to them.
And then show them to us.
True. What I would communicate to the team that was here is that we have some concern. The report is great. We enjoy, we read the report. Thank you very much for all the work you did and all that sort of thing. However, we do have, and I would mention the things that we've discussed in terms of the errors. Yes, Lee?
Fran will understand this. It reminds me, Fran, of reading a very elaborate thesis or dissertation where all the experimental work is carefully documented, but the introduction in which the graduate student explains why the experiment was being done was garbled because they never really understood why their supervisor said do this. So what we have here, what we have here is a very thorough piece of work examining the stones, but the introduction is just a little bit botched.
Yeah, right. So when I get in touch with her, as I say, I need to talk two things. First of all, as far as the estimate, by the way, they do this work and they could be one of the bidders. This is work we'd probably have to put out to bid. Normally we need to get 3 different bids and do all that sort of stuff. So anyway, in my conversation with her, I will see the best way to go about making the corrections in the report, and I'll report to her what we've discussed at our meeting here, that there were a number of different errors or omissions, let's put it that way, that should be corrected for the accuracy and so on. Now,
Alan emphasized that we really thought the report was great, and part of our concern is that if the public reads it, we want it to be correct because we do want to publicize the fact that the report exists.
right, exactly. In fact, I was going to send a copy of it to the newspaper and to the Daybreak and
Don't do that yet.
no, don't worry. I didn't. As soon as I saw the misspelling of historic colored, I said, okay, well.
I understand how that happened because they were referring repeatedly to my book, which was published before we changed the spelling.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that's not their fault, really, but it does need to be fixed.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
these other things are just mistaken, or I really wonder, they had Erica come to the Historic Colored Cemetery, but what would Erica tell them about the history of the place? And neither one of us was there.
Well,
So
no,
they
that's
were
true.
kind of making it up as they went along.
Well, I was the one who referred them to your books for
Thank you for that.
I told them a little bit about you, and that you had written a history of the,
And
underground.
I'm delighted that they referred to the books. In fact, I actually had to look up myself in my own book something because I wasn't really sure of it.
I did that too for, I forget what it was, but there was some detail. I said, did you really say that? So anyway, all right, well, I will report back once I get in touch with Ellen. She's the one. And Fran, do you have a copy of the errors that you went over there?
I do. I haven't indicated the page numbers. I just made a kind of a rough list, but I could go back and do that. And Barbara, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I do wish I had it in Word as well. But a PDF is fine.
Yeah, because you could search it.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just so much easier in a Word document, but
Yeah,
Alan, Fran and Barbara, you're making a very good point. Alan, ask them if they would give us the introductory portion in an editable form. And will you?
Lee, it isn't just the introduction though.
No. But when I mean introduction, it's the text before the stone by stone review. The 100+ pages is the meat of the report, but there's 30 odd pages with text in it. And Alan, if we could have that, we would ship it back with track changes.
Right.
that would be the best thing to do, is for us to make the corrections.
If they can.
Yeah.
Okay, well, when I get in touch with them, I'll relay all this. And as soon as I hear anything back from them, I'll report back to to the commission, and we'll get that straightened out. So now, in terms of the work itself, once we have an idea as to, I'm sorry, Lee, did you?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. As far as the work itself, it seems to me there are two things that we need to do. We need to first figure out where we're going to start. And I guess that really means picking a cemetery. And I do understand that, we have a lot of different things, but I'm assuming that they'll be able to go not just to one cemetery, do all those, and then to the next cemetery and so on. That once they get started, we'll have a better idea of the time that it takes to do all, these things. And when I talked with Scotty, I think Scotty will be a help because he's familiar with a lot of this stuff. I mean, as far as their stone repairs and so on. And so, he will be of help in being able to assess, I guess what should be done first and so on. We'll have that discussion amongst ourselves and figure out a plan, but we do need to, once we draw up a contract, because in the contract we'll have to specify what it is that we're looking for, or what we want to have completed. And for them to give an estimate prior to that, they'll have to go, whoever is going to do the work. And by the way, it may be this company that did the survey, because they also do repair work. So I assume they would be one of the bidders that we would seek out to do this work. But it's probably at that time when the bids go out that the bidders are going to want to know the extent of the work that we want to do, or maybe they just want to know a budget, how much money do they have, and work until that goes out. But that's something that we'll find out at the next step, once we get the work estimates in. So anyway, to sort of summarize, I'll contact the folks that did the work, explain about the corrections that need to be made in the document itself in terms of the well, I won't say the errors and omissions, we'll put it that way. And also I'll ask them for an estimate, see if they can give us some sort of a breakdown as to at least a ballpark figure of how much this work is going to cost. And I'll get back to the commissioners. Then we will need to choose a contractor to actually come in and do the work. But until we have an estimate and so on, we can't do that. Yes, Lee?
In addition to the consultant, Alan, it might be a good idea to talk with the town's procurement officer to ensure that they know what we're doing, and they may be able to help us develop the request for bid.
Exactly, yeah. When I got this $500 check for the Brock funeral, what had happened here, Jeff Morash had told whoever the cemetery place, not the cemetery, the burial company. God, I can't remember their name. Anyway.
Is it John Lawrence? John Lawrence?
No, it was Campbell. No, I forget who they are. Chapman and something, maybe.
Chapman, yeah.
Yeah. So what they did as handling the funeral, they charged the Brocks $3,000 for the funeral. Now, of that $3,500 of it came to the town of Nantucket. So Prospect Hill kept $2,500. We got $500 because we dug the hole. So I had this check made out to town of Nantucket. So I took it in, gave it to Stephen, our administrator at the DPW. And I said, here, would you take this to the town treasurer and find out which account it goes into? And then would you let me know, how this all works? Because the money thing has always been sort of a mystery. We have 5 different accounts, 4 or 5 different accounts, I forgot. Some of them we can use, some of them we can't ever use, or or we have to go through town meeting to use it or something like that. So that's the next step, is to figure out how we are going to pay for this. That's where the procurement office will come through. I'm assuming that the DPW will work through them or through Erica. Erica seems to be the contact point, and she's the most effective one. If I want to get something to the select board or to the town manager, I go to Erica and sort of tell her what I think we need, and she will give me the best way to deliver
We
that.
have to start using the CPC money.
Well, exactly. That's the priority. We've got to start using that. And
Well, speaking of Jeff Morash, I got a complaint the other day from somebody with Folger connections that the ground that was filled in over Whale Oil Gus's interment is just bare ground, hasn't been sodded or anything. And I said, I'm really sorry about that. They sent me a photo. And I said, I'm really sorry about that, but that's, it's in the Prospect Hill Cemetery Association's property. So I think you need to talk to Jeff Morash.
Yeah. Yeah, I suspect that I raised that question with at the Brock funeral with Stephen. I said that plot, even though it's covered with dirt, I said, what's the plan for it? Because it's a bare spot of dirt. This is on our cemetery. And Stephen said, yeah, well, we will seed it in the spring, is how he put it. So I assume that that's what Prospect Hill would do, is they will seed it in the spring. If not, maybe what I should do is call Jeff and ask him what they're going to do. See.
Just technically, grass doesn't grow until the average soil temperature exceeds 55 degrees.
Right.
In Nantucket. That's certainly after April 15th and maybe after May 1st.
Yeah, exactly. And I suspect that that's why they didn't do it. Well, of course it was, yeah, never mind.
But anyway, I just, I have
Yeah.
to say, I just moved it on.
Excellent. All right. Well,
Down the
I'll make,
road, I think they say.
I'll make a note of it. And I see Jeff Morash periodically, and I'll mention something to him. Whale oil Gus. Huh?
Yeah, well, we're still basking in glory from that one.
I know. That was pretty, that was definitely pretty amazing. The, yeah. Okay, anything else on the monument report at this point? As I say, I'll follow up once I have more information, and it'll definitely be on our agendas as we go forward, because we need to work out how, how to get this rolling, I guess is what it is. So, and that, I could have asked Ken Bograd. I see Ken periodically, and I'll ask him, because he's been involved with the CPA for many years since its inception. Okay, next item, the Black Cemetery Network. Lee, did you hear back?
Yes, I don't think this is going to take very long. They have acknowledged our application and approved it. They've published what we submitted in the application. And I've already had a couple of weblog responses saying, oh, great, this is fun, not fun, fabulous. And what I concluded was, if any of those commentaries should be shared, I would share them, but I wasn't going to bother you or your computers with something like, nice to have you aboard. But we have been acknowledged. We're in their network.
Now,
We're having a meeting at 6 tonight. Barbara, are you going to go to that?
No, I'm not. I have chorus tonight.
Well,
Which-
I'll have a look at it.
this is the meeting, a meeting.
Black Cemetery Network.
Oh, really? Oh. I was wondering, do they have a website, Lee? Do you know? They do
Yes.
have a website.
Mhm.
Do you know what it's?
I think it's blackcemeterynetwork.org. That has been sent to you.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well, good. I'll take a look at it and see what kind of things they offer, see what they do. So, any old, new, or other business? You notice the split rail fence at both Old North and New North
Beautiful.
has been redone. I
Looks
did.
great.
I did see Tom Montgomery, who lives just down the street on North Liberty Street there, and he has relatives or parents. I think his parents are buried in the cemetery, and he's the one who keeps me attuned to whatever is going amiss in that cemetery. And he mentioned something. This was Monday night. I saw him Monday night, and I asked him if he had noticed the new fencing at the cemetery. And he said, yeah, but it's a little wobbly. So anyway, no matter what, we'll get stuff. So anyway, they are doing work in the cemetery. Anything else? Any old, new, other business to come before the commission?
I noticed driving by the Quaker Cemetery after the snow had melted away, that people are walking in from Vestal Street. I think of it as Vestal Street Extension, and they've created quite a bare path from where they come through the bushes down into the cemetery. And it's eroding a bit. And I think we should see about doing something to stop people from using that as a path.
You're talking about historic colored cemetery?
No, I'm talking about the Quaker
Quaker.
Cemetery.
Where are they going in?
Okay, imagine that you're driving from Caton Circle in the direction of the hospital. Here's the cemetery. Vestal Street crosses, and it's what I think of as Vestal Street Extension, forms the southern side of the Quaker Cemetery. There's a hole in the bushes there, and people are using it as an entrance into the cemetery. And since the snow melted, it's clear that they've worn the grass out, it's muddy and it's eroding, and I think we should try to discourage people from using that as an entry into the cemetery, because it will only get worse.
So we are talking about historic colored cemetery on
No,
West.
we're not.
Quaker, Alan, Quaker.
Cemetery. The Quaker
Quaker.
Cemetery.
Oh, I'm
I got
sorry.
it
I
from-
had Vesper and Vestal mixed up. I'm sorry. My mistake.
Vestal Street.
Okay, so they're going in off of Upper Vestal.
Yeah,
Oh, I know, over that little dune and so on down into the cemetery.
yeah. And since
Um,
the snow melted, it looks really pretty
Yeah.
eroded and muddy and messy.
Okay, I'll go take a look at it. I was just in the Quaker Cemetery the other day. And I didn't go over to that edge of it, but I'll take a look at it. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think maybe, well, maybe we can plant a bush or something there. Or
I was
whatever.
thinking, a big sturdy piece of privet.
Yeah, all right. All right, well,
If-
I'll take a look quick.
If I had to guess, it's dog walkers, and dog walkers are very persistent.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, that's an interesting point, because getting into the cemetery, I usually park on Cliff or the Quaker Matticat Road, and then go in through the little the opening there. But I will often walk the perimeter of the cemetery just to get a sense of it. And all right, well, I'll take a look and see.
It was very popular after the snow. There was a huge number of families and kids sliding in there.
Yes, I know.
And, oddly enough, when there's a lot of snow on the ground, seeing people use it doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me is in the summer when I see camp groups in there playing ball, because then they really scuff up the vegetation.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen people.
I'm not bothered very much by the sledders.
Yeah, I share that. It's the frisbees and the people using it as the playground during the summer that.
So burial plan for cremains, there's nothing new going there, is there?
Yes, so I spoke with Stephen about the burial of the ashes that we have in the town clerk's office. He said that better to wait until the spring when the ground isn't frozen. So if they're digging, they're going to dig the holes. They'll dig the 8 holes, and we'll sometime in the spring we'll do that one. In terms, or as far as the quays dedication, I spoke with, again, Stephen about replacing the corner rails in the four corners of Quays Asylum area around. And his concern was getting a piece of equipment in there. He needs to get something, and so I told him I would check with the foundation, see if they could drop one of those wires. But last time I was in there to check it to see if there was a lock or something on it, it's all bolted. It's, anyway, so
How did Scotty get the monument in there?
how what?
How did Scotty get the monument in there?
That's a good question. When I was in there, when we put the stone in there, they have a truck with a sort of a crane in the back of it. They lifted the stone up over the fence, and they had a cart, a pretty heavy trolley cart with wheels, and then they wheeled it back. That's how they did the stone. I would imagine that the monument was significant. Well, that was a pretty big stone. So anyway, that's probably how they did it. It was definitely a push. I helped push with. It was almost like a comedy of errors, try to get.
And sometime in the not terribly distant past, they did put those cedar posts at the corners of the cemetery. So it's not as if it's never been done or can't be done. It's just it's time to do it again.
Right. Those posts are telephone pole sections, and they're buried fairly deep in the ground. Yeah. The idea is whenever the foundation is putting in posts, and you'll see them on the moors and so on, you dig them in, put them in about 2.5, 3 feet into the ground, and pack the dirt around them. When kids want to get through there, they simply bump into the post with their vehicle, push it over, get out, pull out the post, and so on. What I would started doing, this is back in my ranger days, I would go to the dump, get a car wheel, because there was a whole pile of car wheels there. I would get 4 leg bolts and bolt the wheel into the bottom of the telephone pole section, put the whole thing in the ground, then pack the dirt in, so there's no way they could get it out.
It's funny, I thought the corners at that cemetery were just cedar posts, like for a split rail fence.
No, they're the cable that goes down. You know, remember?
Oh, no, I'm not talking about at the parking lot. I'm talking about at the cemetery itself.
Yeah, Fran, they are split rail, but there's only one section at each. So each corner has got a section going at right angles, but they don't attach. The DPW concern is getting past the wire at the parking lot.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, that was the issue that Stephen had. So,
but do they really have to take a vehicle in there to do 4 posts?
According to Stephen, what they do is they take the Bobcat in, and that's how they get the old posts out of the ground. And I watched them doing this over at New North when they were doing it there. They take the Bobcat, hook the, and pull the post up out of the ground. So I don't know, maybe they could knock it with a sledgehammer and get it loose enough. Anyway, I'll follow up with Stephen on that. I was going to check with the Conservation Foundation and see if there was any secret way they had to lower that wire that goes around. But anyway, I'll follow up on that and see. But it could be if the upright posts are stable enough that they could just replace the rails. But no, if they're that rotted, they've been in there that long, I'm sure that wouldn't do. All right, well, anyway, that's a work in progress. That will be something we'll tackle in the spring. We're
Yeah,
getting
I-
close.
Alan, if I may suggest, let's formalize this by putting it either on the March or April agenda, probably March.
Okay,
My summer plans have been canceled.
Oh, no.
I was expecting to be away from mid-May to mid-August, but
Oh,
the
Fran.
University of Helsinki is not hosting conferences, and the Fulbright Association decided not to hold their summer program.
Oh,
So the upside of it is that I won't be departing in mid-May and not coming back for quite a while.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Fran.
Yeah, I'm sorry too, but the fact of the matter is, between the mid-May conference and the Fulbright program, my plan was to visit people and stay with them. And under the circumstances, I'm not even sure I would be a welcome guest, but if I were, I would still be rather concerned about staying with vulnerable people and potentially spreading infection from airports and airplanes to people who so far have managed to remain uninfected. So I just have to accept that another year.
oh goodness.
Anyway,
Well,
I don't have to worry so much about getting in these dedications or whatever we've been planning prior to mid-May, because I'll still be here. And I'll be attending the meetings, and so you can count on me to help make a quorum. So,
All right.
all right. Support?
I think we can adjourn.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that last part, Fran?
No, she said that she'll be there to support a quorum.
Oh, to support a quorum. Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm sorry that as far as the trip and so on. So, okay. Is there anything else to come before the commission this afternoon? Seeing none, I declare we are at the end of our agenda, and our meeting is adjourned. So again, thank
Actually,
you.
Alan, this has nothing to do with our agenda, and we are adjourned. But before I leave, just to remind everybody that Steve Arsenault is now our permanent cemetery administrator.
Yes, right. I'm sure he's happy about that too. I read the interview this morning on the so
Okay.
yeah, it's yeah, things are changing.
So I'm going to close the recording, and if everybody's happy, I'm going to close the meeting.
Excellent, great.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Steve,